I want to thank the Chair and her staff for assisting with this resolution and accepting the amendments in the analysis. My staff has also supplied the committee with a request to add co-authors. I know all of them will be appreciated being added. The sponsors have agreed to the rewrite of the resolution with the inclusion of their proposed addition to your draft relative to the persistence and credible reports of systematic state-sanctioned organ harvesting from non-consenting prisoners of conscience in China. Thank you for including that section as well, Madam Chair.
All right, so I'm clear. The section references, whereas the United States House of Representatives passed House Resolution 343 in June 2016, expressing concern regarding reports of non-consenting organ removal from prisoners of conscience.
That's correct, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you
Very much. For nearly 20 years, the media, medical ethics, human rights advocacy groups, and families of Falun Gong practitioners have documented the Chinese government's poor human rights record in their medical establishment practices of recycling the organs of executed prisoners. The New York Times, the ABC News, and other members of, and a number of other news agencies and various attorney generals have all called into question the lack of source documentation for organ transplants occurring in the Chinese medical facilities. Even the source of the bodies and body parts for the Chinese-owned, bodies, the exhibition, the owners of which admitted their display consists of bodies not formally donated by people who agreed to be displayed. Many venues have declined to display the Chinese version of this exhibition because the source of the bodies cannot be substantiated. The Chinese government maintains that the bodies for the exhibition, in fact, for organ transplants generally, are only from unclaimed bodies. But the Logai Research Foundation, which documents human rights abuses in China, have charged that the category of unclaimed body in China includes executed political prisoners. The Chinese government still denies these crimes. Our question is only whether they have found an aftermarket for their capital punishment or that they're killing prisoners of conscience for money. Either way, we should all condemn this practice. With this resolution, the great state of California will join an ever-growing number of international and regional governmental and legislative bodies addressing this humanitarian crisis. In addition to calling our government to action, this resolution is meant to raise awareness about what many believe to be the greatest violation of humanity in medical ethics today: the forced organ harvesting of non-consenting prisoners of conscience resulted in their deaths. As we consider any number of these resolutions this session, seeking to better trade and cooperation with foreign governments, including the People's Republic of China, let's not forget our moral responsibility to express and support our American value of freedom of belief and to call out heinous crimes against humanity for that belief, no matter who the perpetrators are. Today, I have with me two outstanding witnesses, and I'd like to call on Dr. Centurion. He's the Associate Director of the Medical Affairs Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. And also with me, I have Mr. Wang, General Coordinator of the Falun Dafa activities in Northern California. So those are my witnesses I would like to have heard.
Thank you. 2 minutes each. And while recognizing the concern about the organ harvesting, we have made very specific reference in this measure to language that references reports of non-consenting organ removal. The measure, and I appreciate your concern about that, we share that concern, but the concerns that we had also is that at this point in time, we don't have the documentation necessarily, and while certainly happy to hear your statements about this, we certainly condemn that behavior. This resolution, if you take a look at and perhaps address the language within the resolution, which calls for freedom of expression, which of course is unquestionably of concern within the People's Republic, and the fact that we are a state that we can condemn what we know, but as far as referencing something where we do not have the actual data, and we had asked if there were any accurate and accepted reports on this, which we, I don't believe, did find or were presented to us. I'd like you to discuss the entirety of the resolution, which is the framework from which this discussion, I believe, should emanate. So if you would please try to address the totality of concerns here. Thank you.
Should I start? Okay. Honorable Senators of California, my name is Alan Huang. I'm the General Coordinator of Falun Dafa activities in Northern California. I'm honored that I can speak here for the hearing of SJR-10. I've known many practitioners of Falun Gong in the state of California have come to the United States to escape the persecution inflicted on them in China for practicing their belief in three very important principles: truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. The meditative exercises have brought peace of mind and improved health to millions around the world. China is the only place on earth where practicing Falun Gong is banned, even though the rule of law in China supports such a practice. Falun Gong was originally praised by the Chinese government, but due to its increasing popularity during the late 90s, an extrajudicial crackdown was masterminded against the practice in 1999. A brutal and often deadly persecution has continued to this day, with millions of practitioners arrested and imprisoned in labor camps, jails, and mental institutions, many times without a trial. The unthinkable was disclosed in 2006 when news reports exposed the killing of incarcerated Falun Gong practitioners for transplantation of their organs. I came to the United States as an immigrant and became a citizen of the United States because I believe in the core values of human rights, human dignity, and freedom of belief. SJR 10 is so much more than a piece of legislation. It is the story of a people who have preserved against all odds under severe persecution from a communist regime, all the while elevating the world around them by being steadfast in their beliefs. The passage of SJR 10 would support and acknowledge those who have no voice to speak out about the inhumane and heinous acts going on in China today. I appreciate your great help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
My supporting statements for SJR 10 on behalf of Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting are based on the premise that one cannot talk about Falun Gong without talking about forced organ harvesting and vice versa.
How about giving us your name?
Oh, I apologize.
That's all right.
My name is Alejandro Centurion. I'm a medical doctor. I live in Monterey. And
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. My supporting statements on SJR 10 on behalf of Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting are based on the premise that one cannot talk about Falun Gong without talking about forced organ harvesting and vice versa. The term forced organ harvesting, a new form of medical abuse not seen before in history, cannot be discussed without mentioning Falun Gong. I'm a member of DAFO, a medical ethics advocacy group, and 2016 and 17 Nobel Peace Prize nominee, founded by medical doctors in 2006 to promote ethical practices in medicine. For over 15 years, China has been second only to the United States in the number of transplants, despite not having a public organ donation system until 2013. China's hospitals have been able to provide a large number of transplants in extremely short periods of time, days to weeks, while other countries like the United States, you have to wait for years, leading the international community to ask, where are all the organs coming from? The discrepancy in transplant numbers, too many transplants without an unexplained source, in addition to the cumulative evidence compiled by our organization and other investigators, has led to the undeniable conclusion that prisoners of conscience and not executed criminals have been the primary and unacknowledged source of organs in China. Our research has concluded that Falun Gong practitioners are by far the largest victim group, along with a smaller number of Uyghurs, Tibetans, and House Christians. The evidence is so compelling that one of our members, Dr. Jacob Levy, the president of the Israeli Transplantation Society, an ex-member of the Transplantation Society's Committee of Ethics, passed medical legislation in 2008 to prevent Israeli citizens from being complicit with this crime against humanity by traveling to China for organs. Spain and Taiwan have since passed even stronger criminal legislation as a result of this evidence. Efforts to condemn these violations must continue from all levels of society and government. SJR 10 shows California's commitment to upholding justice and its defense of human rights. Our hope is that one day, soon, those affected by this atrocity, the innocent Falun Gong practitioners or other prisoners of conscience, will no longer be victims of one of the greatest violations of medical ethics of our time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support of this measure? Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, any comments from the members? Did you have more to say, sir?
I just wanted to make some comments as far as the evidence of regarding.
You've given your testimony. If there are questions, they can feel free to ask. Senator Wieckowski.
I have a question. I apologize for not being here.
That's quite all right.
I came in and there's an amended mock-up.
Yes.
This is the mock-up that I got and I missed that part.
Right. The amended mock-up is the language that has been agreed to and the amendments that will be taken on this measure.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the measure. Senator Morlock.
Madam Chair, you had asked for a specific question to be answered before the witnesses started. Was your question answered?
Well, to the extent, it wasn't really a question asked, it was just a statement about hoping that the focus of the discussion would be based upon the amended mock-up version. And I believe that the witnesses have attempted to address that, and it's much appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you.
I could have said it that much more simply earlier on, but I thank you for your testimony. And no witnesses in opposition, so Senator, no questions. Senator Anderson, would you like to close?
I would. Madam Chair, members, I wanted to just point out, and I apologize for not pointing this out in my opening, but 3 articles were distributed to you earlier. Two of them are from the American Journal of Transplants, one in 2016, one in 2014, and then an article from 2017. And I just point out that one is titled Organ Procurement from Executed Prisoners in China. The other one is Transplant Medicine in China, a need for transparency and international scrutiny remains. So if they go in much greater detail, this is very technical, and I'd also like to add that 3 countries have banned to date, and others are working on it. 3 countries have banned medical travel to China for the purpose of a transplant. And that's because they believe that the evidence is overwhelming, and they don't believe that anybody should be harvested for their organs. So with that, I would ask respectfully for an aye vote. We're better than this, and we need to call out heinous acts against humanity at every opportunity.